Okay, we're live. Welcome to week 2, Eat Clean, Get Lean, everybody. It's a snowy night here in Manasquan, and I'm glad everybody has a opportunity to come and be with us tonight. I'm going to get this all started in just a moment. If you have any questions or concerns, you can use the chat box. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say hello to everybody in my little chat box here. And we'll start the PowerPoint up in just a second. So there's my little hello to everybody. And I'm just going to open up my screen. Susan, of course, like always, will be monitoring my broadcast to make sure that you guys can hear me and can see me. If you need a drink, please get one. I got a little seltzer in my little mason jar with my straw. And before we get started, got a really great book. Ordered it through Amazon, through the KeenanMedicalFitness.com/store site. We have an Amazon store for those who don't know. And it's called The Walls Protocol. It's a book on nutrition and exercise and meditation, and it's designed to help people with autoimmune disease and specifically multiple sclerosis. And I'm reading it. This is a story of a physician who was confined to a wheelchair and was going through all different kinds of conventional treatment. And the medication was not helping her. Matter of fact, she was getting progressively worse. So she started going back into her physiology textbooks and started learning about her mitochondria and how her cells are functioning, and realized that if you're trying to build a car and you forget to put the tires on, you're not going to get very far. Well, if your nutrition is so poor that the cells start to become dysfunctional, it certainly opens up the opportunity for disease. There's a science of epigenetics, and basically it says what genes are going to be turned on versus what genes will stay turned off. And if there's genes that could lead to disease like multiple sclerosis or cancer, and your diet and nutrition is so poor that the cells begin to suffer and they start to become dysfunctional, it opens up the opportunity for disease. And as my good friend Richard always says, what is the purpose of our existence? We are hosts for bacteria. So if the good bacteria in your gut is not happy, if you're not taking care of it, you're not eating correctly, it will look to eliminate you and go find a new host. So be a good host. All right, I've procrastinated long enough. Everybody's probably online who's going to get on tonight here at 8 o'clock. So I want to welcome you to week 2 of Eat Clean, Get Lean. And this week we're going to talk about getting the bugs out. Something to think about with the bacteria we just talked about. The first couple of minutes, we're going to go through a review. I want everybody to be on the same page with regards to nutrition, exercise, sleep, hydration, all the important components of the program. And then we'll spend a few minutes talking about getting the bugs out. So again, what do the experts say? I think by now we realize that if we eat less and exercise more, they say you'll lose weight and have a balanced metabolism, but I'm trying to show you week in, week out that first we balance metabolism, then we naturally lower calories because we're controlling our hunger and our cravings, and then we lose weight and we get lean. And again, we'll spend a few minutes talking about how do you know your metabolism is balanced. Okay, I'll kind of let that hang out there, and you can think about how do you know that your metabolism is in balance. Hopefully everybody knows the answer to that, but we'll cover that in a few minutes. So remember, your metabolism is not a calculator. Your thermostat, your metabolism is a thermometer. Okay, so basically it reacts to the environment in which it finds itself. So again, if your heat is set at 68 and it's cold out there tonight and the temperature in your house starts to drop, and it drops below 68, what happens? The heat comes on. Why? Because the thermostat is responding to the environment it finds itself in. And our body does the same thing. So, again, what happens when we eat less and exercise more? Well, we know the answer to that is you start to develop hunger, low energy, and increased cravings. because you're eating less and exercising more, your body doesn't have enough fuel to complete the tasks that you're asking it to do. So the body's going to push back. You push, the body pushes right back. And what happens is you start to get a decreased metabolic rate. So you stop burning as many calories. Again, what happens when you have hunger and cravings, you can't control that. So what do? You go back to eating more, and probably because you have low energy, you have no motivation, you start to exercise less. So we get weight regain and overcompensation. And again, if this scenario didn't exist, I wouldn't have a job. Because a lot of people that come to us, this is what they've done. They did this and they keep going to do it again and again and again. They lose a little weight, but they can't sustain it, and they put the weight back on. So hopefully what we're teaching you here is good science, so that if you understand the science and you apply the science, then you can have the results that you desire. So here's our little scenario. The red boxes, again, as always, is what we want to avoid. The blue boxes is what we want to encourage. We want to keep away from eat more and exercise less, because that's what a lot of people do, who get up and get in their car, drive to work, sit all day, get home, drive home, sit at home and eat, and even if they're eating good food and your body's not exercising, what do we know? We know that your cells there needs to be a demand for the cells to provide energy, and to provide the way that the body provides energy is converting the food you eat into a usable form of energy. But where is that conversion taking place? It takes place in the mitochondria of your cell. And what tells the cell to consume more food is your activity level. So if you're eating more and exercising less, the physical demands on your body are less, so your body doesn't burn fuel, and you start to accumulate that in the form of stored body fat. And conversely, when we eat less and we exercise more, well, I just went over that. That's hunger, that's increased cravings, low energy, low motivation, depression, and you go back to eat more, exercise less. So what are we right now? Well, we're in our eat less, exercise mode. We're in our second week of that. And I'd like to start getting some feedback from people on how you're doing with that. Okay, I put something on Facebook the other day to describe my situation with my eat less, exercise less that I was going through. And when we get to that point where we start breaking down, what to do if something's going wrong, then I'll make reference to it. And eventually we will get to the eat more, exercise more model. So our plan, we're in week 2 of eat less, exercise less. We're going to do that for 4 weeks. Then in the 5th week, we'll cycle in our eat more, exercise more, and then we'll go back to eat less and exercise less. And what we do in week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and moving forward for the rest of your life, well, that's where the coaching comes in. That's where we're going to help determine what is your best course of action. And we got a lot of options that I don't want to go into now, because I don't want to confuse things. I want to keep it really simple. Just think about eating less and exercising less. Let's focus on getting your metabolism and your blood sugar balanced out. And again, we'll use the AIM process to tweak and adjust. Just a reminder, your 3-2-1 program, 3 meals a day with long periods between food to aid in neuroendocrine immune recovery. So again, if you eat your last meal at 8 o'clock at night, try to hold off till at least 8 o'clock the next morning before you eat again. And then after that, if you eat at 8, try to go out till 1 o'clock. Give yourself that 5-6 hours in between meals so that your body will start to burn more fat and less sugar, because your blood sugar will start to drop and your body will need to start to burn more stored body fat. Okay? And if we run into problems, I'm going to answer those questions in just a few minutes. 2 of the 3 meals are protein shakes. Again, you should be using between 20 to 50 grams of protein. If you're like me and your lean mass is up over 170, 180 pounds, probably closer to the 50 grams of protein. I'm using about 45 grams of protein now, because my scoops that I use for my protein powder are 23 grams per scoop. So I'm roughly doing 2 scoops. If your lean mass is closer to, say, 100, 108, 110 pounds, maybe you're using more like 20 to 25 grams of protein. Add fiber if needed, but do not add fat or fruits. We want the protein and the fiber in anything that you're eating right now to exceed the amount of carbs and fat that's in it. Okay. When people say, well, I have a meal replacement shake, instead of the protein shake I'm making at home because I'm stuck and I'm out, and I went to the health food store and I brought this great protein shake. Well, look at the label. The protein plus the fiber have to be greater than the carbs and the fat. Or some other people have said to me, you know what? I really need a bar, a protein bar during the course of the day. The only safe bar that's in 7-Eleven right now, I don't know if they're in Wawa, so I can't speak to that. But I know in 7-Eleven, they're selling Quest bars now. It's Quest, Quest bars. They're the only safe bar that's in a 7-Eleven right now. Why? Because their protein plus fiber is greater than the carbs and the fat. Again, hopefully I'm opening up windows and doors for questions so people can say, well, what about this and what about that? With our protein shake, we have our protein powder. You can use water, unsweetened almond milk or coconut water. You want to get a protein that's easy to digest, hyperallergenic, things like Vega Sport, Plant Fusion, Hemp Force, and others. Find one you like. Most people we found have really done well with the Plant Fusion. It's made from 4 vegetables. Okay. The protein is concentrated, so it's not like eating whole servings of those vegetables. And people say, why can't I do that? Well, the reason being is that if you eat the whole plant food, there's a lot of carbohydrate and or fat that goes with it, and you'll far exceed the amount of calories you're trying to do by trying to eat the whole food. So by using a protein powder, you're getting the benefits of the protein without having to worry about the added calories and carbohydrates. And then, of course, we have at least one regular meal, which is 3-part vegetables. I'll show you what that plate looks like in a minute. 2 parts protein, 1 starch. So for me, that could be, a huge half a plate of some nice steamed broccoli. Could be a nice big salad. Could be, for me, it's going to be closer to 6 to 8 ounces of protein, whether it be grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish, free-range chicken, some lamb. And my starch is usually a sweet potato, okay? Because I can afford to use the extra calories. Some people who are half my size, maybe it's a half a sweet potato, maybe it's 4 to 6 ounces of protein. And as far as the vegetables are concerned, the fibers, carbohydrates, things like broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, green beans, romaine, spinach, you can eat pretty much as you can fit in, because I think in 1 pound of broccoli, there's 60 calories. So you're definitely not going to overdo the green vegetable. Why do we have a starch at the end of the day? Starch will help with sleep. As my son will tell you, sleep is good. And we're gonna have a whole webinar just on sleep in a couple weeks, and the important components of sleep and the stress hormones that are produced with lack of sleep. So we'll talk more about that. So here's your dinner plate. You can see half of it is vegetables. Big portion of it is protein. Very small portion of it is starch and or fat. Okay. Now our eat less, exercise less exercise. We're doing 3 or more rest and relaxation activities per week. So these are activities designed to help the body recover, repair, and regenerate by balancing out the nervous system and lowering your stress hormones, right? What do we know about cortisol and melatonin when it comes to sleep? They're opposite sides of the same coin. So as your cortisol levels go up, your melatonin levels are going to drop. So if you're having a lot of stress, if you did not have a starch with your last meal and you're having trouble falling asleep, you're probably getting increased cortisol levels. So we need to lower cortisol levels in order to get our melatonin levels up. And we have things like ID Life Nutrition. We use something called Sleep. Sleep has 5-HTP, L-theanine, which is used to lower cortisol levels so that your body will naturally start to produce melatonin. And the Sleep also has melatonin in it. Some of you who've been with me for a while, we used to recommend a product from Life Extension called Tranquil Sleep. Basically, same formulation, okay? Lowering cortisol levels, allowing the body to naturally produce more melatonin to help us to sleep. So we want our naps, our physical affection with our loved ones, time with pets, watch a funny movie, go in a sauna, take a hot bath, massage, foam rolling, restorative yoga, leisurely walks. We're going to do a whole thing on walking next week. Tai Chi, these are all great things. 2 traditional weight training workouts. Why? Because we're trying to maintain lean muscle mass. We're not trying to build really muscle mass at this point in time. We just don't want to lose any. So what are we doing? We're doing 4 sets of 10 repetitions using a 10 RM. What that means is you want to choose a weight that you can do approximately 8 to 12 repetitions where you hit temporary muscle fatigue. In other words, you can no longer lift the weight appropriately anymore. You're too tired to continue. So why do we do that? We want a temporary muscle failure because that helps us with lactic acid production. Lactic acid is the key that unlocks the door to all our healing compounds, testosterone, human growth hormone, and other tissue repair hormones. It causes something called mitochondria. We talked about the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Proliferation, that's an increase in the number, size, and function of your mitochondria. Mitochondria are engines. Engines burn fuel. Their chosen fuel source that they like to burn is stored body fat and oxygen and a little bit of sugar. Just think of sugar as the match that lights the fuse to the stick of dynamite, and the stick of dynamite is your fat and oxygen. So we're going to do 4 exercises. We're going to do a squat or a leg press. We're going to do a chest exercise. It could be a bench press. It could be push-ups. We're going to do a back exercise. It could be a standing row. It could be a lat pull down. It could be a seated row. And shoulders. Shoulders could be an overhead press, or for some of us like me with shoulder issues, we're not going to do an overhead press. We may do an upright row. And then, of course, the one is 1 hour or more of leisurely walking on all and most days. The people who have the most success in our program are the people who walk every day. Okay, it's very, very important. So here's some examples of your 3-2-1 workout. The top, you see the overhead shoulder press. The second one down is a squat. The third one from the top is a forward-leaning upright row. And number 4 is a push-up. Okay. And again, we have a lot of exercise videos on the RX Studio that have videos that you can just work along with. Any questions or concerns, you just let me know. And if you don't like the videos there, well, I'll make a new one. My goal is to meet and exceed your needs. Are you having Susan's here talking to me? Is it fuzzy to you?
A little blurry, and they may be experiencing that. So
Okay.
we apologize.
Susan's telling me for some reason on her iPad it's coming up really fuzzy.
A little blurry.
A little blurry. So if you're having any trouble, you're gonna please let me know.
Let me know.
Yeah, let Susan know. Just type in there. It's blurry.
Just maybe touch the screen a little. Click on the screen somewhere and just see.
Okay.
Maybe go back. Were you ready to forward to this?
Well, yeah, but I have to. If you want me to go out, I'll go out.
No.
Okay. Measuring progress. Again, we're using the AIM process. AIM stands for assess, investigate, and modify. So what are we really assessing? Well, again, our hunger, our energy, and our cravings. The shape. You know, anyone, we should be weighing ourselves. We should be taking our circumference measurements and putting it into the body shape calculator that Susan has given you the link to. You're going to, for women, you're going to put in the circumference of your chest, your waist, your hips, your forearm and your wrist along with your body weight, and that'll give you your body shape calculations. We're going to look at things like waist to hip ratio. We're going to be looking at chest to waist ratio, and we're going to be looking at percent body fat. For the men, of course, we're measuring the chest and the waist along with our weight, and that gives us our chest to waist ratio, which we're concerned with, and of course, our percent body fat. Investigate what's happening. Are we making change? And modify what exactly do we want to change? Well, we're going to go through that right now. Again, our favorite acronym is HEC, is your HEC in check. Hunger should be less than a 5. So on a scale from 0 to 10, we want it less than a 5. Energy should be greater than a 6, and craving should also be less than a 5. Okay, so what do we do if this if this situation doesn't exist? Okay, what are we assessing? Is your HEC in check? Body composition. Some people are following their blood work. Okay, investigate the 4 scenarios. I'll go through the 4 scenarios in a moment. And modify. Remember, in order to help with hunger, energy, and cravings, the first thing we do is we increase the amount of protein, fiber, and water to control HEC. And if we're not losing weight, then we have to look to reduce the amount of carbohydrate and fat in the diet. Protein, fiber, and water are not going to increase or accelerate fat gain. Okay, so we don't have to really worry about that too much. However, too much carbohydrate, too much fat in the diet will cause you to gain weight. So we have to be mindful of that. So how do we get the HEC in check? Well, step 1, making sure you have proper amount of protein, fiber, and water in your diet. For some people, it's going to be more in the 4 ounce of meat. For me, it's going to be closer to 8. For the amount of fibrous carbohydrate, at least a cup of cooked and raw vegetables. Okay, and if this keeps your HEC in check, that's great. But remember earlier I said I was having some issues and I had to modify? Well, here's what I did. I went to step 2. And in my meal, I added some fat. Now, that could be 10 grams, so it could be like half of an avocado, could be an ounce of almonds. It could be some olive oil on the dressing for my salad. Okay. If that doesn't work, you're still having trouble with hunger and cravings, what do? We subtract the fat out of the meal and we add in a starch. So this is more at a breakfast meal or a lunch, because remember, we're already having starch with dinner. All right. So let's pretend this is a lunch. Okay. And you're having issues with your protein shake and you're just not being satisfied. You're still hungry. Well, if you're using a blender or a Vitamix or a Ninja, whatever it is, to make your shake, well, if we go back to step 2 and the protein, fiber, water shake is not satiating you and you're still hungry, this is where you start to add the fats in. The fats could be, like I said, some flaxseed, some chia seed, some avocado. That's not working. Take the fat out of the next shake and add in some starch. And that's where we could start to use, you can use ground oatmeal that grinds up very nice in a Vitamix or a Ninja. Or you could start to add some low glycemic fruit. Or you could put like a half of a banana in. That'll certainly get your starch up. Okay, that's still not working. Then we have to add fat and a starch into that particular meal. And this is not done because you want it. This is being done in order to help with getting your HEC in check. Okay, we want to make sure that you can sustain this program. And if you're hungry and have tremendous cravings, you're going to have low energy and you're going to lose out and you're going to blow it, so to say. So we need to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to try to get your HEC back in check. And if still not working, then we need to have some protein snacks. And that's when I tell people, go in, grab a couple pieces of turkey, roll it up, and have some of that. Or have half of a shake. So let's say, for example, you got up in the morning and you had a protein shake, and you know you're not going to eat until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you're like me, maybe you have to eat breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning. You know you're not going to make it. This is where you need to add a snack in between breakfast and lunch so that you sustain yourself. Okay. And we have some other options. I know when talking with Dr. Jade, a lot of times he would have some coffee. Coffee was something he used to get himself in between meals. I also have these great things. I call them appetite chews. They just help to satiate me. They help to control my hunger. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I can talk to you about that. All right. So how do we really measure fat loss? And again, if you have questions on Heck and Check, we can bring those up at the end of my talk. We're all using Metabolic Effect, Jade's Body Shape Calculator, and the website is at the bottom of the screen. It's www.metaboliceffect.com/me-shape-calculator. And everybody has that in their quick start guide. Susan sends that to you every week in your notes for this upcoming webinar that we do. And I really would like you to get those results, have them, email them to yourself, because at the end of entering that data in, it's going to ask you for an email address, and you'll get the results by email. If you take those results, forward them to KeenanMedicalFitness@gmail.com. That way I can put them in my Excel file, and I can keep track of your results. And again, everyone by now knows where the measurements are for women and for men. Okay, so kind of wrap this up. If your Heck is in check and you're losing weight, what do you do, guys? Do nothing. Don't change anything. I don't care if it's only a pound a week. If you're moving in the right direction, don't try to change. There's so many people out there, and I talk to them all the time, and they're looking for the next best thing. Well, this is kind of slow. Let me see if I can find something that'll help me lose weight faster. And they sabotage themselves. Don't change anything. If it's working, keep doing what you're doing. But what happens if your Heck is in check, but you're not losing weight, or you're gaining weight? Well, then we have to look at how much starch you're putting in at your meals. Okay. Later on, when we get into the eat more, exercise more, and we're adding more starch into our food program, you might need to move all the starch into one meal. You may have to look on cutting back on fat. Some people have been using chia seeds in their shake all along because they felt like that was helping to satiate them. Well, how's your hunger? How's your cravings? How's your energy? And are you losing weight? If you're not losing weight, we need to look at these kind of things. All right. What about if your Heck is not in check, but you are losing weight? And people, usually this doesn't bother them initially. Like, oh man, the scale's going down. My measurements are going down. This is great. I'm kind of hungry. My energy's starting to get a little low and my cravings are starting to kick up. Well, we need to make a change because you're not going to be able to sustain that. So the first thing you do whenever your Heck's not in check, even if you're losing weight, is make sure you have adequate amounts of protein, fiber, and water. This is usually a point of contention. People don't realize the value of protein, fiber, and water. It will help you with your Heck, getting your Heck in check. If it's still not working, let's add some fat back into the diet. If that's still not working, take the fat out, add the starch. If that's still not working, add the starch back in and some fat. And again, as we mentioned, you can also snack. What about if you're not losing weight and your Heck is still out of check? Well, go back to what works. Go back and make sure you're adding in your protein, your fiber, and your water. Start cutting back the starch. Okay? Just follow the plan, and we can get you through this. Okay, so now we're talking about the bugs. I have clients who come in, and we're going to go through these foods that we're looking to have you abstain from for the first 4 weeks. And they really try to keep these foods in there and still hit their goals. And I'm going to tell you, if in your food plan, you're consuming a couple glasses of wine, a couple beers, maybe a vodka tonic every night with dinner, you're really going to sabotage your program. We've talked basically from the beginning that there's certain things you need to abstain from, at least for the first 4 weeks, so that you can help to get your heck in check, get your metabolism right, and balance out blood sugar. And the first thing is alcohol. Alcohol is probably the most difficult thing we deal with regards to pulling it out of people's diets, because we're so accustomed to having wine. It's a social thing. I get it. But you came to me because you were looking to make a change. So, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So we need to make change. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to abstain from alcohol for at least the first 4 weeks. The second thing we want to abstain from is wheat and all flour. It's a processed grain. Grain is going to cause you to gain weight. So if you notice, in this whole food program, I never talked about using bread as a starch. I never talked about using pasta as a starch. When we talk about starches, we're talking about sweet potato, quinoa, brown rice, oatmeal, those sort of things. Okay. So we want to try to stay away from breads, anything that is in a form of a wheat and or flour product and grains. Okay. You notice we haven't really talked about beans either in this program. Dairy is another source of inflammation, and it's a sugar, and it could definitely throw your heck out of check. Plus the fact, if you really want to get down to it, human beings are the only animals that consume dairy past infancy. So we're really not designed to use dairy, and especially from another animal like a cow. So what do we talk about? We talk about using almond milk, coconut water, coconut milk. Even some people are using cashew milk right now. So those are the things we want to abstain from. Dairy is milk, butter, yogurt, cottage cheese, and all milk products. Again, a lot of times it's because it really can cause inflammation, especially to the small and large intestines. A lot of people are lactose intolerant. And by the way, if you have a gluten intolerance, you probably have a dairy intolerance too, because the proteins are so closely sequenced. There's a very little difference in the genetic sequence of gluten and the genetic sequence of dairy. Soy, we talk about soy, tofu, soy milk, soybeans, all foods that use soy as an additive. In a lot of the food bars, you have to be very careful. They use soy lecithin as a filler, okay? In some of the vitamins that people have shown me, they use soy lecithin as a filler. So you really have to be careful about what you take. Now, we're going to do a talk on vitamins and supplements in a couple of weeks. We really have to be careful about all the things we put into our body, especially these first 4 weeks. Corn, that'd be corn starch, corn oil, corn flakes, certainly corn chips, and corn syrup, especially high fructose corn syrup. Now, in this process, we've talked about a lot of foods so far. We talked about alcohol, we talked about wheat and gluten, we talked about dairy, we've talked about corn, we've talked about soy. Well, for a lot of people, these 5 things are coming out of their diet. They're abstaining for 4 weeks, and they're never going back in. For example, I don't eat anything that's made from corn. I don't use any dairy. I rarely, if ever, use anything that's wheat. I don't do bread. I don't do rye. I don't do barley. We try to stay away from glutens. And, outside of the program, I have a glass of wine, maybe on one on a Saturday night, once or twice a month. I mean, these are things that I found for me are very pro-inflammatory compounds. And after having 3 knee surgeries, I don't need to increase the inflammation in my body. So these are things that I'm going to continue to abstain from. Now, peanuts are not nuts. Peanuts are legumes, beans. This whole process, the first 4 weeks, I haven't mentioned a single bean in this process. The reason is beans are very high in carbohydrate, they're very high in fat, and believe it or not, they're very low in protein. So it's not a food in an eat less, exercise less program. Now, eggs. Eggs is kind of a tricky one. The reason we put in eggs at this point in time is because there are people that have a lot of allergies to eggs. Now, here's a problem that we don't really talk much about, but you need to know, okay? You are what you eat, and you are whatever you eat eats. So if chickens are truly free range, they're walking around a farm somewhere in, Idaho, making that up, and they're eating little bugs off the ground, and they can eat grass shoots, and they're not being fed a grain diet like marigold seeds and soy and other, corn. You're probably not going to have a problem. But most of us are eating eggs that are just commercially grown. Most of them, most of the eggs you eat, the animals in a cage. It's not free range, and they're being fed a feed. So if they're eating genetically modified grain, and they're eating soy, and they're eating corn, well, that's what their cells are made of. So if you eat the eggs, there's a very good chance that you're taking in soy, you're taking in corn, and you're taking in grain, and you're taking in genetically modified food. So, when we talk about big rocks and little rocks, the big rocks being carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, little rocks being the vitamins, minerals, and fiber and water, the pebbles being, the supplements that we take, and the sand or the water at the end being whether it's free range, non-GMO and stuff. So this is part of the big rocks, little rocks, pebbles, and sand scenario. So you are whatever you eat whatever the animals eat. So that's why we talk about wild caught fish, free range chicken, free range eggs, grass fed beef, lamb. Lamb is another pastured animal. Bison is another pastured animal. Buffalo would be a pastured animal. Pork typically is raised in very poor conditions. So pork is not something we really readily advocate unless you can get like wild boar. You go down to Blend on Main Street, Manasquan. They have wild boar and venison on their menu. These are things that are minimally processed and they're free range, wild caught. So that's why eggs is on our list. So why do we combine protein with carbohydrates? Well, what I want you to imagine is a tennis court that's laid out in front of you. We talked a little bit about this in the past. The square footage of a tennis court is equal to the square footage of your intestines. So there's a lot of available space for you to absorb sugar into your system. So how do we slow down the absorption of carbohydrate? Well, we combine it with protein, and that helps to slow down the absorption of sugar. So what are the negative effects of chronically high blood sugar? Well, what do we know? Sugar is the cause of chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation is the cause of most of the disease we have in our body, things like rheumatoid arthritis and type 2 diabetes and hypertension. These are all high inflammation or chronic inflammation diseases. Now, the main target tissues of this inflammation is your blood vessels, and this inflammation causes hardening of the arteries, decreased circulation, heart attack, stroke, blindness, kidney failure, decreased wound healing, leading to amputation. This stuff really happens, okay? I'll give you a perfect example. My mother's father was a smoker, drank wine, and had a diet that was very high in sugar. He wasn't a very heavy man, but he was type 2 diabetic. So he ended up having a lower leg amputation done. He also had some other disease processes, and he died in his early 70s. Okay, so this stuff really happens. So instead of looking to a pharmaceutical fix for your chronic inflammation and your high blood sugar and your um, hypertension and your high cholesterol. Let's see if we can start to make changes by diet. So what doesn't it say on this slide? It doesn't say saturated fat causes heart attack, decreased circulation, stroke, blindness, kidney failure, decreased wound healing leading to amputation, because we realize that our brains need saturated fat. There's two excellent books that I reference all the time. One is by Dr. Perlmutter, and he wrote a book called Grain Brain, where he advocates things like free-range eggs, because the yolk in the eggs has healthy fats, wild-caught fish, krill oil, coconut oil, and the saturated fat in grass-fed beef. These are all necessary saturated fats that help with the sheath, the myelin sheath around our nerve cells. If that myelin sheath decays, that leads to multiple sclerosis. And if there's not enough fat for the brain, it starts to shrink and causes Alzheimer's and dementia. So these are very real things. Okay, a lot of people ask me, because I throw a term out called CRP. CRP is C-reactive protein. And they measure this when someone has a heart attack. They want to know what your CRP levels are. Why? Because it's a marker of inflammation. But it's not just a marker of inflammation, it's actually a cause of inflammation. It increases interleukins and cytokines, which are pro-inflammatory compounds. And inflammation leads to things like blindness and heart attack and stroke. Okay, so we want to lower our CRP levels. I think that's very important. So if you work out with me, or you've listened to me talk, or you've been on our RX Studio, what is one of the ways that we help to lower CRP levels? Okay, one of the most important ways outside of diet, which we talked about trying to eliminate the processed carbohydrates and the high amount of sugar in our diet, is intense exercise. Intense exercise helps to lower CRP levels. So on this slide, Susan did a wonderful job on this slide for me. How do you get lean? Well, we start with the food. Protein and fibrous vegetables, or fibrous carbohydrates, times sleep, plus intense exercise, trying to get you breathless and burning, okay, just like the exercises we advocate in the Eat Lean, Get Lean program, and your daily walking. These are the things that'll help you get lean. So what is the hormonal effect of intense exercise? Well, I want everyone to think of this analogy. How do you get a locomotive to move? Well, you put water and wood or coal in the furnace, okay? And water heated by coal creates steam. And the steam pressure is what moves the piston, and the train moves. Well, in the human body, we exercise aggressively. We cause a lactic acid response. Lactic acid is the key that unlocks the door to all our healing compounds, our tissue repair hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and human growth hormone. So here we go. Hormonal effect of intense exercise. Intense exercise leads to temporary muscle failure, lactic acid triggering release of healing compounds, human growth hormone, testosterone, tissue repair hormones, lower CRP, leading to decreased inflammation. So we get to some questions in a moment, but here is our conclusion for the night. Is your HEC in check? Okay, only you can answer that. If it's not, you know what to do. Are you achieving temporary muscle failure? Do you feel the burn when you exercise? Okay. Are you getting enough protein daily? And are you using supplements to get your nutrition insurance? Okay. If anyone wants to take the free assessment for nutrition, you can go to MikeKeenan520.idlife.com and take your free assessment. Okay. If anyone has questions on that, I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. If you go to MikeKeenan520.idlife.com, and you go to the page on the top right, you'll see something that says take your free assessment now. You click on that. You'll be brought to another screen. You'll see a nice looking guy on the left-hand side. That's Troy Aikman. He used to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and now he's an analyst on Channel 5, Fox Football every weekend. And you go down, and there's a little arrow there. You can click on that, and you can listen to Troy Aikman talk for 2 minutes. And then below that, you'll see a little button that says New Users. You click on the button that says New Users. You're going to be asked to fill out a profile, your name, your email address, your age. It'll ask you for your date of birth. It'll ask you for your gender. And then you're going to create a unique username and password. And the reason you're going to do that is that it is a HIPAA compliant assessment. In other words, only you will be able to see the answers you put into the assessment. No one else can see it. So you need to be able to have a username and password so that you can get into the site and you can go back and look at your answers and look at your recommendations. Okay. And we'll talk more about that when I get into the whole webinar in a couple of weeks on supplementation. And by the way, in the Walls Protocol, the new book I'm reading by Dr. Terry Walls, where she healed herself from multiple sclerosis, one of the things that she advocates is the use of nutraceuticals, vitamins, minerals, and supplements in order to, get through those potholes in her nutrition program. For a lot of people, they like the Plant Fusion Protein Powder and the MRM. It should be, instead of RMR, it should be MRM Reload, which is the branched chain amino acids that we advocate. You can go to our Amazon store at www.keenamedicalfitness.com/store, and the Plant Fusion's on there, and then some of the other supplements and branched chain amino acids and so forth that we recommend. So you can go find it there. So, are you resting? Are you laughing? Are you enjoying your life? Are you walking at least 1 hour a day? Okay, these are important components in our program. Okay, so next time we're going to discuss in detail the benefits that we get from walking and how it affects stress hormones, fat burning, along with preserving lean mass. And that's all I have to say about that. So let's go back. Let's get some. Oh no. Thank God Susan watches out for me here, because I can see that we had problems with the black screen and that the message says that she is okay. I'm sure Susan's handled this by now. And don't mind me if I click in your ear. Okay. So, Susan, I know you're listening. All I have is the ones that talked about the black screen. So, we did record this tonight. So, if for any reason someone was having any technical difficulty, we're going to be able to give you the review. Okay. So I just got another message that says, could you tell us the importance of what the branched chain amino acid powders are in the Eat Lean, Get Lean program? Okay. Branched chain amino acid are essential amino acids your body needs to be able to make things like muscles and enzymes and hormones, collagen, hemoglobin. What? You're okay?
Yeah, I was fine the whole time.
Okay. Susan's saying that she was able to see everything the whole time. So
might be Lucille's computer. We
okay.
apologize.
Well, we apologize if there was any inconvenience, but we will certainly make the replay available tomorrow morning. But getting back to the branched chain amino acids, so what do we know? We know that we need to be able to make these important, valuable body proteins. What else do we know? We know that if your blood sugar starts to run low, your body's going to start to look for ways to access sugar to feed your brain and your nervous system, because the only thing your brain and nervous system can use for energy is sugar. So the body will break down protein, it'll break down hemoglobin, hormones, enzymes, connective tissue, whatever it can, any protein you can get, to convert that protein through a process called gluconeogenesis. I know you've all heard me say that before, to make sugar for the brain and nervous system. Well, if you consume branched chain amino acids, your body will break that down first before it goes after your other valuable body proteins. So by putting it in a shake, it'll help to balance blood sugar. If you're exercising, you can use a branched chain amino acid before, during, or after your workouts. It's virtually calorie free, and it'll help to sustain your energy, and it'll stop you from breaking down valuable body proteins during this process. So that's why we're a big advocate of branched chain amino acids. And we happen to recommend either the one that comes from ID Life or the one that comes from the Amazon store, the MRM Reload, because they're very palatable, they do the job, and it's very cost effective. I mean, you're talking about, nickels, dimes, a product that you're going to put in the water, and you do mix it with water. I like mine with ice. I like everything cold. Some of the other things we've advocated in making the shakes is the cacao, which is nothing more than unsweetened, basically chocolate. We were very fortunate when we went to Washington, D.C. We went down to Mount Vernon and we watched how they make it. It's pretty incredible. They basically take the cocoa bean that comes from South America. They moderately or medium roast it. Okay. Then after the roasting is over and it cools, the outer shell comes off and you have the cacao. And what they do is they chop that up into little nibs. Matter of fact, you can buy cacao nibs in a health food store. The next step after that is they take it and they heat it, and it allows the cacao along with the cocoa butter to mix. They make it into a liquid, and then they pour that liquid into molds, and they get like bricks, like gold bricks they look like. And they take that and they grate it like grated cheese. It comes out like a powder, and then you get to use it, and you can put it in you can put it in oatmeal, you can put it in your shake, you can make a cacao drink that Susan has. That's all on our you don't have to even go to ARC Studio. You can find that on YouTube, along with the importance of branched chain amino acids. And branched chain amino acids also helps with the sputtering effect. Remember I talked about when your body starts to convert from going to be a sugar burner to more of a fat burner, you might have trouble in that small transition. I had some problems with sputtering last week, and that helped me too. So I have about 10 to 9. I don't see any other questions coming on, so we're going to shut down. But remember, you can access us through Facebook. The group is a little small tonight. Not small, but there's a manageable amount of people. If you want to contact me by email, shoot me an email at keenanmedicalfitness@gmail.com. But I really want to help people with the coaching. I know this is not easy. A lot of us came off the holidays where we were consuming a lot of alcohol, a lot of grains, a lot of flours, a lot of dairy, a lot of corn, a lot of, all the things that we're trying to cut out of our diet. So it's really important that we try to eliminate them for at least the first 4 weeks. And you may be having trouble. This is where the coaching comes in. Remember, this is a 12-week coaching program. I want to help you. Okay. But if I don't know what you're doing, then I can't help you. Okay. It's got another message. Great. I ate at 7 p.m., 50% vegetable, 40% protein, 10% starch. It was great, but I'm hungry now. I know I'm just getting started. I understand the concept. Okay. So what I would say to the person who just sent this to me is, if you're going to go back now, we don't want to try not to add any more starch in tonight, but perhaps maybe we need to add some fat into your diet. So what am I going to tell you to do? I'm going to tell you that maybe you should go back and have a nice salad and use a balsamic vinaigrette with a little bit of olive oil in it, because the fat may satiate you. You could also have about an ounce of any kind of nuts you have in the house, say like cashews or almonds. Okay, that'll help. And drink water. And if you have branched chain amino acids, that might be the way to start. Okay. Remember, we're going to talk about sleep. Sleep trumps food. If you can't sleep, we need to make some adjustments. Okay. The other thing we're going to talk about, I'll talk about very quickly, is something called surfing the urge. You ate at 7 o'clock, it's almost 9. What happens sometimes is we have these urges, and we realize, and this is advanced teaching. We don't usually talk about surfing the urge till later on, but since the question came up, I'm going to answer it. Surfing the urge means that sometimes you have peaks and valleys of cravings. So a lot of times what we try to do is we say, okay, let's have a little branched chain amino acid, and let's see if the peak of that craving starts to drop and dissipate. And let's see what happens. Sometimes that happens more often than not, that you have a craving. And remember, cravings come more from the head, not from the gut. Although you said you're hungry. Let's, also look at the plate. Was there adequate enough fibrous carbohydrate? I mean, literally, we could be eating up to a pound of broccoli. I know it sounds crazy, but a pound of broccoli is really not that much for a guy. It's pretty easy for me to do. Make sure that you had 6 to 8 ounces of protein in your meal. And, I know who's asking this question. You certainly could do a modest size sweet potato, a cup of brown rice, a cup of quinoa, a cup of oatmeal. A lot of times I'll have oatmeal as a starch because we always have oatmeal in the house. I don't always have a sweet potato. So let's try surfing the urge. Let's try, if you have branched chain amino acid, do that. If you don't have it, try adding salad to tonight's meal. Even though the meal's over, you could still certainly make a salad. Try a balsamic vinaigrette with some olive oil and see if adding fat helps to satiate you. And follow up with me tomorrow and let me know how you made out, and we may need to make some changes. Okay. A big ally in this 4 weeks is having a pound of turkey breast in the refrigerator that you can roll up and have with some. I usually just take a big leaf of romaine and I throw 2 slices of turkey breast in there. And, condiments like mustard. Mustard has no calories. Load up with some mustard, knock that down. And sometimes it gets me through the night. Try to go to sleep at a reasonable time tonight. Try to see if you can get to bed before 10 o'clock. Because when you're sleeping, as long as you can sleep through the night, you're not going to be hungry. Okay? But do get back to me tomorrow and let me know how you made out. Okay? It was an excellent question, though. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. I don't see any other questions popping up. So, guys, I'm going to shut it down. It's almost 9 o'clock. Everybody have a great night. And I want your measurements by Friday. I want to know how people are doing. Again, use the body shape calculator. You take your circumference measurements, your weight, and at the end where it says, enter your email address, enter your email address in, hit submit. When it gets sent to you, forward that email to us at KeenanMedicalFitness@gmail.com. All right. Have a good night and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.